You know, you do this long enough, and sometimes the smallest thing will give you a hint. So I got a 562 Husky here, and they did say it had some running issues. And if you look at this recoil housing, it's broke all this shit. So when you pulled on the cord, it wouldn't engage, which led me to, you know, okay, it's possible that this could have taken a lick on the job site, and, you know, now I'm leaning towards this got thrown. Because once I couldn't get it cranked, I couldn't get it crunk. You want to come down to South Carolina, you know all about that. So when I got the new recoil assembly in today, I fired it up. It ran just fine. When I did some cutting with it, and the idle was a little bit on the low side, and you could kind of hear it blubber. So even though people will say on the internet that it'll hide an air leak, if you have a good ear for what a lean idle sounds like, where you get that blubbering noise where it's really not hitting that nice hard lick where you're hearing pop, 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 pop. It's more of a there's my sound effects for today. So anyway, so I let it sit there and idle, and it fell on its face. I came in and I'm like, okay, this is a 2018. So it's in relatively good condition, aside from quite possibly being thrown to the ground. Which brings me to another story, and we'll take a look. Just because you've got, and I mean, I'm fortunate enough to work at a dealership where I can use this. I did do a reset for the fuel settings. The low setting was at like 26, which didn't make any sense because that's way, way out of where it was supposed to be. I think when I reset the fuel values, because I did run it a little bit after this to see if that would cure it up. I did a firmware update on it, and anyway, so while I ran this, so here we go. We got 30 hours and 11 minutes. So there's my 1 minute and 36 runtime out there doing some testing. It did get a little hot. You know, you could kind of feel it. You know, nothing crazy. But it just goes to show you it's not always the auto-tune, the M-tronic. You know, you really have to get down, because the only thing that makes this M-tronic is this little brain right here on the side of the carburetor. Fuel solenoid, temperature sensor, the wiring harness that goes from point A to point B. And this is just a regular ignition coil. It's just a little smarter than your average bear. So, do your due diligence, vacuum and pressure test, and you'll find out what we're getting ready to see. That's a sneaky little air leak right there. Everything else looks good. Seals hold nicely. They're just some residual bubbles. That's a that's all jam up and jelly tight. So it runs pretty decent, just won't hour worth a flip. So anyway, I'm gonna pull the jug and get this sealed up, and that should cure it. All right, here's where we're at. The next morning. All right, couple primes, choke, brake. Fast idle. There we go. Time for a new carburetor. Let's take you inside. This is one of the more aggravating things you can do is when you're trying to diagnose this stuff, if it'll pass, you know, and I've said this time and time again. Hold on one sec. There's no magic wand inside this box. You still have to be a dead mechanic. The low side of this carburetor is foobar. It will not tune and adjust on the low setting. You can run it mid-throttle, wide open, it seems to be fine. So I don't believe we have an electrical issue, because that's what the box, the magic box without the magic wand, couldn't detect. So yeah, you know, we'll talk about some failures on the 562s, and typically I see, you know, bearing failures. Again, this is typical, not typical, but it's kind of common that you have those side transfer caps that leak. You know, so I mean, you got to walk before you can run. Two strokes do not want an air leak of any kind. So, you know, you get the crankcase and the engine where it'll hold pressure and vacuum, then you can move forward. So even if I didn't have this, I still would have been able to figure this out. You know, it's definitely a bad carburetor. That's not an electronics issue. So with that being said, we're going to order up a brain hammer new carburetor for this. Unfortunately, it's out of warranty, so, you know, that's going to have to be done. And the carburetor comes without information on it. So it has to be plugged in and programmed and matched to the specific ignition coil that's on here. There's several versions over the 10 or 12 year production run of this, so the carburetor has to be told which ignition coil is on this saw, so it will communicate. Anyway, so that's pretty much the rest of the story. I know for a fact when I get a new carburetor, put it on here, program it, it'll run fine. The rest of the saw is in great condition, like, you know, it's low hour. So there we have it. You know, it's a shame that these saws have been in production so long. We still have issues. Although this problem is uncommon, the air leak, it does happen. It does. So it's something to be conscious of. All right. Thanks for sticking with me. Y'all have a great day.